Oh dear.
Let's see what kind of sound. Okay.
Feet. Now, whatever made him say that? And I was feeling as good as anybody, but it was just time for me to, for me to go in there.
Just tell us your name. Just begin by telling me your name.
Oh, my name is Mabel Hardison Smith. I'm Mabel Hardison Smith. I was born Mabel Parker. Mabel Parker. So I have a long name, Mabel Parker Hardison Smith now.
And where were you born?
I was born in Blockton, Alabama. Blockton.
Where's that?
That's in Alabama, of course. I think that's Jefferson County, Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. That's Jefferson County, Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long time ago.
Tell me about the way your father came up here.
Oh, my father came up on what they call a transportation. They were looking for miners to work in the coal mines up here in Kentucky and in Virginia, West Virginia. And so he came up on what they call a transportation. And they would come by and get the old families, haul all their belongings, everything up to the point where they were going. And so my people came to Kentucky, Lynch, Kentucky, in Harlan County. And so that's where we resided in 1919 is when my father came up this way.
What was that like for you? You were a child at the time?
Oh yes, I had just turned 7 years old when they came this way. I was going to be 8 years old, but they came in May, and I was 8 years old in March, the following March. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when you first saw Lynch, what Lynch
Oh,
looked like?
yes, I do. There was just one main street, paved street, one street, which was Main Street. And we called that section up there number 4. That's what they called it. That was town. And there weren't very many houses. The houses were all on Main Street. And then there was one street off where we lived. Eventually it was called Mountain Street, right off of Main Street. But it wasn't a paved street. It was just a dirt road. So.
And what were the people like?
Oh, the people, well, they were they were people from different localities. Oh, I can remember there were a lot of Hungarians, a lot of foreigners there when I came. When my people came up, there were Hungarians, there were Germans, and there was, I know my dad said he had he called him his boss man in the mines there. There was a Russian. I remember him saying he had a Russian boss man there. I don't know what they called him, whether it was a foreman or what, but in the mines there, he had his boss man. Well, he had one there was called. He was a Russian. I know he had one. There was one there. Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was the difference between Lynch and Alabama? How did they look different?
Well, now the little town at that time, see, now I was just a youngster and I hadn't been around anywhere, and I don't know what. I couldn't describe the city or town to you at that time because I was quite young. But from my point of view, as a child, I don't know how to describe the town. I mean, Lynch at that time, it was very crowded though, and it was all mixed up. The people weren't actually it wasn't any too much segregation because everybody was all there together. There were miners of all kinds of whites and blacks, and as I said, different nationalities were there. I know there were a lot of Hungarians there, and I know there were some Germans there. And the children, when I was coming up in Lynch now, there wasn't actually any segregation at that time, during that time, when I was quite a child. In Lynch, the houses, maybe on this side of would live a black family, and on the other side would live a white family. And so people at that time, they were all mixed up.
What about the schools? Were they segregated?
They were segregated. The schools were segregated. Yes. The school, there was a colored school that they called a colored school down in the lower end of town. And there was a white school up on the upper end of town. Mm-hmm. So at that time, it was safe, but the children played together. Everybody got along together, well together. But we were separated when it came to the schools. I had little white friends that lived there that used to come over and spend the night at our home, next door to it. We were just friendly, that's all, at that time.
Why do you think the coal companies went down to Alabama to recruit miners? Why did they recruit in Alabama, do you think?
Well, I don't know whether that was the only state south that they went down to recruit workers. But I just imagine it was a shortage of miners up in this section, and so they went down, and those people who wanted to get away, there are a lot of people. Now there were mines down that way, I answer, because my father worked in a mine down there in Alabama. That's where we were living, right out from out from Birmingham. I think that was the place where the mine wasn't in Birmingham, but we lived out from Birmingham in a little village called Parker Spring, and my father worked in a mines. Let's see, I think it was called Dolomite. Dolomite, if I'm not mistaken. I can remember that. I think it was Dolomite, this mine that he worked in. But I remember him saying he worked in a mine in Dolomite.
Were the when you were in Alabama though, that was segregated, right?
Oh yes, So now I can't tell you anything about the segregation because I don't. I was small and I wasn't too much in a crowd to know, but I just know that it was segregated. Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was the transportation? What kind of, did you come up by train?
Came by train. And we came by train. And of course, all your belongings were in the freight cars, And it was a long train, this particular train that we came up on. I know there were different others, you know what I mean, but it was a long train. Mm-hmm.
Full of people?
Yes, lots of people. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And we got into, when they did, at that time, I'm trying to recall, there was only one train came into Lynch, and it backed in. And I'm trying to remember where they backed in from. I think they backed in from Cumberland, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, I know the train used to back into Lynch, and then it would, shoot out. But now back then, at that time, this long train, I guess it backed in too. I reckon, and I don't know. I can't, because I was small, and I don't know how that happened. But I do know that we came by train. And after we got into this place, they had places fixed had the homes ready for the men. I guess they knew just how many people were coming to Lynch and how many were going to some other parts of the, of the state, into the next state, I imagine. I know, but there were quite a number of people came to Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
Men, with their families. Some brought their families and some didn't. Some men came just themselves and didn't bring their families, but my father and some others brought their family along with them.
Do you remember what the mountains looked like to you?
Oh, I was thrilled with the mountains, because from where we lived, it was leveled. There weren't any mountains. You didn't see any mountains. But I was thrilled because we were right in the valley, so to speak, now knowing it, but at that time I didn't know that as a child. But I was thrilled with the mountains, the hills, as my father called them, the hills, yes.
Tell me about when you started to sing and to learn music.
Well, I suppose I started playing by ear as a child, right in the church there, right in the church right across the street from us. In the Sunday school, I used to pick little tunes out, and I used to play for Sunday school. I don't know, for a long time I just naturally could pick up tunes by ear, and then I started playing when I guess I was about 9 years old. I started at church.
What kind of tunes? Do you remember any of them?
Well, it would be the songs that I'd hear my mother singing, which would be Christian songs, and I'd pick them up by ear,
Do you remember? Can you sing us a few lines of one of the early ones?
Let's see, can I think of something Mama used to sing a lot? There's one little song she used to sing a lot. There is sunshine in my soul today. Oh, let's see, I can remember. There is sunshine in my soul today, most glorious and bright. I remember that one, the tune. And she used to sing, bringing in the sheaves a lot. Bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. That was one she used to sing. Oh, she used to sing a lot. My mother sang a lot. She had a beautiful voice. She used to sing. She had a voice, beautiful voice. I have a little sister that sings like her. The nurse, Frances, she sings just like my mother. My mother sang and had a beautiful voice. I don't have any voice now at all.
Mm-hmm.
I ruined mine a long time ago. Working with choirs, trying to sing the parts, different parts in choirs. I don't have any voice at all.
So you began playing the piano, or?
The piano by ear at Sunday school. And then the Sunday school there gave me music lessons. They decided, they suggested, let's give her music lessons. And then she'd, play for the Sunday school. So they did. There was a teacher there in the town there in Lynch. And so we, Mrs. Bell, I remember her name was Miss Bell. And she gave me music lessons. And I started playing for, I was musically inclined, so I started reading music and playing the simple songs, for Sunday school. I played for Sunday school, BYPU. Yes, that's the Baptist. That was the Baptist Young People's Union, because they call it BTU now. I think they call it Baptist Training School for young people. And we used to have a little organization on Sunday afternoons or evenings where the children would come together. We'd go to BYPU. That was training for the young people, something like Sunday school, and I used to play for that in my little church too, church.
What kind of songs? What were some of the names of the hymns that you played then?
During that time, just the standard hymns. There were a lot of children hymns that children sang. Some like Sunbeam. I mean, children songs, and then the regular standard hymns like What a Friend We Have in Jesus, My Faith Looks Up to Thee, More About Jesus, and, oh, just Higher Ground, songs like that, just the standard hymns. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, did you bring something from the South with you? Was there a culture, do you think, that you brought with you from the South, or did you find a culture in Lynch, or what?
Well, you know what, I think maybe I was too young to know what type of culture I brought. But, you know, association begets assimilation, you know. So being associated, becoming associated with the other groups of children around you, you know, well, you pick up, that's all. As a matter of fact, I don't think I brought any particular culture with me as such, you know, because Kentucky, I was reared in Kentucky. I don't have any recollection, just a tiny recollection of a little town that we lived in once we moved there in Parker Spring. So all my young life was right there in Lynch, as a matter of fact, in Lynch, Kentucky.
Do you think you picked up anything from the mountains, from living in the mountains?
Oh, yes, I'm sure. I picked up a lot. What I am, or what, you know, that I acquired has been here, taken from the mountains. It certainly has. There are people, I've met a lot of people that have been, I have met people who have inspired me. I have been inspired. So I think probably I picked up the culture from here in the mountains. Maybe I'd have to say I'm from the mountains in a way, because I was reared there from 7 years old, a little better than 7. I just turned 8. Going to be 8 the next year that I was there. So my culture is really mountain culture, really. I'd have to say it that way, because I couldn't say that I brought anything particularly. Now, I know I was inspired by my mother. My mother went to Tuskegee, the school there, Tuskegee Institute, and she knew Booker T. Washington. She knew him just like I knew my president at Frankfort, Kentucky. That is down at the school when I went to the college at Frankfort, Kentucky. My mother knew Booker T, and she inspired me to want to go to college as a child, because she used to sit and talk about her school days, you know. And we see Booker T. Washington was history to me. And to sit and listen to Mama say she knew Booker T. Washington, you see, he was history to me. And so that really, if there was any culture brought, it was the culture that I got through her and her teachings, you know, because she was, she talked a lot. She talked of her experiences. And she always talked about, she really inspired me to want to go to school, want to go away to school, because she did. At that time, you know, the school, it was the way they were, you know, when they went away well, they didn't call it high school then, you know, but they did go away from home to school.
Tell me about how you got married. Tell me that story of coming over into Virginia the first time.
Well, now that is exciting. Oh, that's been a long time ago. I fell in love with a young man, and we planned to get married, but my father was a strict type, you know, and so we had to run away and marry, slip away and get married. So at that time, they had just cut the road across from Kentucky to Virginia. Now it was just mud. The road was just cut through. They hadn't even put any gravel on the road. And lo and behold, one January day, at a worst time of the year, we slipped away. I slipped away from school. We came across that mountain, slipping and sliding, and got over here to Appalachia and made inquiries as to where you could find a justice of the peace. And they told us we had to go to Wise. So we hired on up to Wise. And we get to Wise, and we get into the courthouse and to the judge. And the judge wouldn't marry us because he said I didn't look that age, you understand? And then we found out you had to have the consent of parents. And I didn't have that, so he didn't marry. So we had to go on down here to Jonesville to get married.
Mm.
So we did. Cumberland Gap, I'm saying Jonesville. Cumberland Gap it was. That's where we got married. We've hired away from Wise and went down to Cumberland Gap.
How did you come? What were you riding in?
Car.
Do you remember the car?
Yes. I'm thinking that in those days, you know, you had to get a cab. Well, they didn't call it taxi. Called it jitney. A jitney. But this man didn't have a jitney. He had a car, a beautiful car, nice car. They had just started making the cars in color. And this, I remember, his car was a deep maroon. He had just gotten a brand new car. And it was a deep maroon, not, deep maroon. And so we came on. He's a very close friend of my husband, late husband at that time, children's father. So we came over in the car. We were in a car, full passenger car. Yes, it sure was. I remember that.
I've got it.